Welcome back to Business by the Books, the podcast that helps you as a business owner understand your numbers to make better business decisions to grow your business. Today, I have Cameron Hemphill on the show. Cameron is the CEO and co-founder of Growth 99. Cameron has 20 years of experience in CRM and digital marketing management, and he has successfully taken Growth 99 from a review management tool to the software and website design agency it is today. Now, what's really exciting about Cameron is the way that he approaches his numbers. I've asked him to come on the show today to talk to you about how he uses his numbers to make business decisions as a business owner who is actively growing and scaling their business. Cameron has so many nuggets within this show. So grab your pen and paper and get ready. All right, Cameron, welcome to Business by the Books. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Danielle. Pleasure to be here. I appreciate it. And I really enjoyed the conversation we had last time. So looking forward to diving in with you.
Yeah. So for the listeners, I was on Cameron's podcast and I was so impressed with the way that he approached numbers and his money mindset. I wanted him to come on and share a little bit about how he uses numbers to run your business. So let's start with what is your business and how you got started there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have been an entrepreneur ever since I was little, very, very little. I recognized that early on. I was the kid that would figure out how to sell candy to the neighborhood. I was the kid that would start the lawn business at age 12 and go to all the neighborhoods and drop off flyers and see that was just my mentality. I had a really interesting relationship with money early on. And I don't know if it came from my dad or my mom or what ignited that early on.
Were your parents supportive of you doing that? Or were they like, why are you trying to scam the other kids? Or they were like, oh yeah, entrepreneur, right? Like, cause depending on what your parents' background is, you could be like, what are you doing? Or you could be supportive.
No, my dad was an entrepreneur. Okay. He had a business for many years and did quite well for himself. And so it could have been inspired by that, but it's interesting that when I think about it, I can't really pinpoint it. I do remember a moment in time, I think I was 4 or 5 years old, and my cousins they came over to my house. I lived in an apartment at a time, I remember, and they set up this whole entire process to where they called me Captain Cameron, and we went on this I was the captain of the ship, and we went on this journey to find treasure, and they put money all around the pond at the apartment complex, and so there must have been the reason they set that up was they saw some sort of relationship with money. And so entrepreneurship, talking about money, I've always been very interested in it. I think it's a conversation that's not talked about enough, especially when you get older, spouses, kids, and so it's a conversation that I really enjoy
having. What is your current business today? And how did you found this business?
Yeah, so I've had many businesses over the years. I have, failed a lot, and I've learned a lot from those failures, right? And so every time you fail, you learn something, as you know. I think some people retract and others move forward and really have that ambition. And so I've always been quite, ambitious and continue to learn. And as my career has advanced, I've had many businesses along the ways, and I've had a couple of very successful exits. In the current business that I'm very focused on right now, and I've actually been zero laser focused for about 7 years on, it's a company called Growth 99, growth99.com. And what we service is the medical aesthetic space, dermatology, plastic surgeons, dental cosmetics. It's a B2B SaaS model for the elective wellness component. And we power, several thousand clients on our platform. So it's a platform where we help them grow their practice through digital marketing efforts, through CRM, marketing automation, online booking, EMR integration. And so it's a recurring revenue model, which has expanded and done very well. And we're having a tremendous amount of fun.
That's awesome. When you started the business, did you know that you wanted a reoccurring revenue model, that you wanted that SaaS business model? Was it intentional?
100% intentional.
Yeah.
The business that I had before was I consulted for a SaaS company. I'm sure you guys have heard of Salesforce.com,
Mm-hmm.
like in the early 2000s, and carried that consulting forward. And I was always embraced by, man, the margins in SaaS are interesting, very high margin, reoccurring revenue, licensed software. I mean, we're talking over 90% margin and reoccurring revenue to license the software. So I was very intrigued by it, and I always wanted to be an owner of that. And along that journey, I had several side businesses. I had a furniture company that I was actually did very well, but with a furniture business, we were drop shipping. We had trucks, we had warehouse, we had high insurance, we had a lot of mitigated risk that we had to handle. Tremendous
Expenses.
amount of very expensive and low margin. We were doing 8 figures a year in sales, but the margin was very low. So I realized, hey, I can run this and we can make it, go higher, and it could be a great lifestyle business or potentially exit. I decided to sell that to my partner at the time. And I sold it. We closed the transaction on a Friday. I started this venture on the Monday. And
Okay. No time off.
like, I was just ready to go. Like, as that transition took place, I'm like, I was just ready to go.
Yeah.
And we got into the space, and it took us about 8 months to get some traction
Ooh,
through.
let's hang on there because I
Okay.
think we have so many business owners that we talk to that are very frustrated in their first 2 years in business of
Yeah.
why is this not gaining traction faster? So 8 months, you said.
8 months. And I think after 8 months, our reoccurring revenue, if I went back and looked at it, I bet it was probably 7,000 a month
Yeah.
after 8 months of a tremendous amount of work, like 90 hours a week, working when I shouldn't be working, lots of anger, frustration. But I knew that if I stayed disciplined to my focus, and if I continued to do what worked, we could multiply it over time. And I think a lot of times, like, business owners get super frustrated and they throw in the towel, or they get distracted and they're like, ooh, there's a shiny object over here. Why am I making X amount of money here when I can go to this? This is exciting. Or someone gets in their brain. And so, I've read a ton of books, and I've followed a tremendous amount of very successful entrepreneurs. And one of the things that, like, if you read a lot of entrepreneurial books and business books and money, finance books, um, the one thing that always, like, it's kind of the same outcome. They all go through the same journey, right? And they kind of tell their story or their opinion of it, their viewpoint of it. The one thing that always stood out to me was stay disciplined. Like, discipline is going to exceed motivation, ambition every single time. Do things when you don't want to do them, right? It's
Isn't
like
that
going to the
true?
gym.
Like in every area of life, like whether it
So
be
true.
fitness, nutrition,
Yeah,
business, like discipline,
100%.
you cannot count on motivation. You
Yep.
have to stay disciplined.
Yeah. I mean, motivation will get you going, but discipline will get you there and keep you there, and that's really hard to do. Like, there's days I don't want to make phone calls still today, right?
Of
There's
course.
things like I don't want to do. And if you do those things on hard days, or it's doing the things that you don't want to do over and over again, which is weird to understand, but
Yeah.
it actually produces the result, right? So we started getting really great traction about year three. Year three, I think we finally crossed $100,000 a month in recurring revenue. And once we hit that, like, I thought we had just dominated it. Even though we were very small, margins were great. Like, we were finally starting to pay ourselves a little bit. And I'm like, man, if we just keep our churn low, like, we can go sell this thing for a multiple.
Yeah.
Well, when we hit 100,000, that's just when, like, the hockey stick just went
Mhm.
bananas. Started getting traction. Could obviously hire more people, more resources, invest into the company. Now today when I look at the company, it's a $10 million ARR business. So it's growing very well, and there's a lot to do. And we have big headcount at this point, and building out leadership.
Yeah.
But
How many team members do you have in your team?
so when you look at our U.S. structure, we're right around 30 as the headcount. So 30, and then we have offshore development. So total headcount, like, across the board, is gonna be in the 150 range.
And what is your role in the business? I think this is important because it looks differently for every business owner of what you want to lean into. Like, what is your expertise? So what has been your role as the business has changed?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you go from like wearing every hat. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you're the CFO, you're the bookkeeper, you're the CEO, you're the sales guy, you're the marketing guy, you're the travel guy, you're the escalation guy, the support guy. It gets nuts. To finally being able to delegate those activities and get your time back and focus on what matters most. There's a wonderful book out there actually called "How to Get Your Time Back." Dan Martell just put it out not too long ago. Phenomenal book. I've applied those activities to my life and in every area. So like it's basically hire somebody to get your time back. And so as you grow and scale, you have to fire yourself from roles, right? You have to
Yeah,
fire
you're
yourself and say like
buying your time. I always
you're buying your
consider it
time
as
back.
like you're buying your time back. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. And you know if you do that and realize like wow, if I'm spending 2 to 3 or 4 hours of my time a day doing this, like I'm losing, and I need to outsource that work and find the right resource to scale that. And I think a lot of times what happens is when you start to scale really fast, you become the admin of your business. And if you're not careful, you can start to hate your business
Mm-hmm.
uh, because you forget your why, you're not doing what you want to do, and you become like the admin. And I see it so many times. And that's when people want to throw in the towel, or they sell early, or they self sabotage. So that's one of the things that is done very well for us is just continuing to look how we get our time back and focus on what matters most. And so today, I do stuff like this.
Yeah.
Go on podcasts. I speak on stage. I'm in a tremendous amount of webinars. I do a lot of business development stuff. I run the sales team. So I'm the president of the company now. I've hired a CEO actually. So we want to take the company, want to double the company, and I feel like I brought in the right resources at this point in time to get us to where we want to go.
All right. So I want to hear about what you were looking at. What numbers were you looking at back when you were in year one of the business compared to what numbers you're looking at in the business now? So in those early days, what numbers were you looking at? Were there specific reports? And then how often were you looking at them?
I'm looking at my numbers daily,
Okay.
actually, even since from inception. I think I have, just based on the history of being an entrepreneur, I kind of have an idea what to look at, what not to look at. And so in the early days, I mean, we had QuickBooks set up. We set it up through classes with each entity and able to go in there and hook up all the bank accounts and do the matching. And, in the early days, I was doing the bookkeeping. Like, and I would just wake up an hour earlier and just kind of, do the matching and everything would fall into the P&L. But I was just really watching expenses and I was watching income. And, my whole thing was, hey, I want to be above 50% net income month over month, which is a phenomenal marginal business on the net side.
Yeah.
And you get great EBITDA on that. So and what that did was it disciplined us to continue to scale while at the same time looking at our costs, right? And because what can happen is as you start to scale, you start to spend more money, of course, and you kind of lose sight of the bottom line, and your expenses go up, right? So
I think that's the biggest chart to watch as we're
yeah,
growing is how fast is our sales growing versus how fast are our expenses growing. And there might be a time where they cross, but only okay if that's a season, right? As long as they
sure,
come back apart and
yeah.
that your expenses level out as your sales continue to increase. We'll get back to the show in 1 second, but real quick, are you an entrepreneur or business owner struggling with the complexity of tax deductions and salary structures for yourself? It's common to feel lost in the maze of tax regulations and unsure about how to effectively pay yourself from your business. Navigating these challenges can be daunting, leaving you with more questions than answers. But what if there's a way to simplify this process, ensuring you maximize your deductions and set up the most beneficial compensation strategy for yourself? That's exactly what our guide on the top tax deductions for every business owner and how to pay yourself as a business owner are for. These resources are designed to demystify the essentials, helping you understand and leverage tax deductions and outline a clear, effective strategy for your salary as a business owner. Through these guides, you'll learn the key deductions you shouldn't miss, strategies for tax-efficient salary and owner's draws, and much more, ensuring you're financially optimized and compliant. So if you're ready to take control of your financial health with confidence, head over to kickstartaccountinginc.com/gift or click the link in the show notes and download your free resources today. Okay, back to the show.
I'm a big fan of tech and tools. And so anytime I can look at a place in the company that we can automate with a tool and eliminate a body, we will do that. And we've that's always been our motto since inception. And it's served us well because I will pay $100 a month for a tool any day. You cannot find a human body for that price. And then we'll hire strategically and put them on things that we can't automate. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it also levels up the team too, in a way. Right. So we've always had that philosophy, and we had that benchmark like, hey, I never want to drop below 49% EBITDA or net income, if you will, month over month. And that was our baseline. So we knew our baseline. And as long as we spent money on marketing, it was fine because the sales would increase. So we have a really good benchmark of a net operating income number that we really looked at. And now today, it's so much more sophisticated. It's what is our customer acquisition cost? What is our cost per lead? What is our conversion rates? How many, account executives do we have? What's their compensation plan? When do they start paying for themselves? It's a very, very complicated process, and QuickBooks can't give all that data. Our CRMs can, right? So we have CRM systems that all the leads come in, lead round robin distribution takes place. I know exactly how many leads I have to produce for the team in order to hit target, right?
And I think that's an important comment right there is that QuickBooks has its place, right?
Yep.
I always say QuickBooks is your all-encompassing, here's how the health of the business is. Yep. And that's really what you're going to be using to report on taxes, to manage the business, to make hiring decisions. But it's not going to always encompass all the data. The rest of the data has to come from other systems, and having a robust set of tech to be able to support the entire analysis, not just the income statement. It's not just about the balance sheet. It's about the entire picture of the business.
100%. And I'm a huge fan of QuickBooks. Like I love it. I'm not certified or anyway. I've learned as I've gone through it. I don't know it nearly as well as you guys do, but I can navigate. I was really happy when I was able to delegate that task to a bookkeeper, and when I hired them, they're like, "Wow, you know how to do all this stuff." I'm like, "I do. I just don't want to do it anymore. I don't need to be doing it. I need to do other things. Someone else can do it. That's way more qualified for me than me, and has the time and the energy and focus there." So yeah, it's become more complex, but I would say the biggest challenge right now is forecasting, which has like nothing to do with the QuickBooks, right? Like everything flows in flawlessly. Like we have our merchant account, we have our ACH, we have our checks. It all flows in, goes into QuickBooks. The CFO and bookkeeper go in there and they process everything that they do. And I just see a report at this point in time, which is great. But now my challenge is forecasting. So it's like, okay, what is our run rate the end of 2024? What is our target? How many leads do we have to hit? What is the conversion rate? What is the pay? What's the bonus structure? And now go execute. So it's a different level of stress.
I think it's a evolution as a business owner, though. Yes. We get comfortable looking backwards, right? So we get comfortable with reading the reports, understanding what the reports mean, how to make the business decisions, and then there becomes this clicking moment where it's all right. Now I'm ready to look forward in the business and be able to strategically plan forward and create a budget, create a monthly forecast, and be able to start to be intentional about how I plan moving forward so that you're not always reactionary. So I think what you're experiencing is such a natural evolution as a business owner to take that route.
Yes, absolutely. And like we would have never have gotten there if we didn't have our numbers in order from the very beginning and understanding them and everything. Like, when you and I were talking last time, it all starts with the bookkeeping. Like if you don't have good bookkeeping and good number and understand your numbers, I have no idea how you're running a business. Like, and I don't even care what your revenue is. Like, I can't comprehend it because you're almost like driving a car with the lights off at night. Like, it's very
So,
dangerous.
out of curiosity, so we talked a little bit about, growing up, you had a flair for entrepreneurship, the money mindset piece. But how did you actually learn how to read the income statement, right? Like having a money acumen doesn't really flow into reading the income statement. Where did you learn that?
Yeah, I guess I get obsessed with subjects and I'll study them and I'll read about them. I was a very poor student in like high school, and I actually dropped out of college. Very poor student. I was so bored.
Most
I
people
wasn't.
are.
Yeah, I just wasn't learning what I'm like. None of I understand. I know how to read. I know how to write. I know basic math. Cool,
Yep.
checkbox, right? Like, and so beyond that, it was not. There was nothing very interesting to me. And so, but what money's always been interesting to me. Finance has. And so the way that I learned was self-taught. I read books. I studied financial sheets, P&Ls, balance sheets, what they meant, podcasts, YouTube, and learned.
Great. Any examples of some key decisions that you made as a result of looking at your numbers, like a hire, firing people, making a strategic pivot in your business? Anything that you can think of over the years that you made that decision because you were looking at your numbers?
100%. Like 100%. I would look at expenses rising, subscriptions, tools. We actually do a quarterly meeting to look at where we have subscription overlap, because as you start to grow, you have a ton
Yeah.
of tech. Like we spend like just a tremendous amount of money on monthly subscriptions. And what happens is you'll find that there's a lot of feature overlap. So you almost have to do an analysis of all your recurring revenue that you pay for, like QuickBooks, for example, right? Let's like another one that we Chat GPT is one that we pay,
I mean,
right?
it's so common that like a software doesn't have a feature when you first start with them.
Yeah,
They add on and you
right.
forget that you had a workaround and now you
Yep,
can cancel your workaround and just use the software that you wanted to use in the first place.
totally. And that's like a job at this point. Like
Yeah.
when I look at a company of our size, I'm like, okay, cool. We're we have a decent size business. I have no idea how like an Amazon manages that. Like a company of that caliber, Nike or, just somebody in the Fortune 500, they have, I mean, they have to have so many subscriptions, and it's got to be somebody's job and title that I'm not even aware of. But we'll look at stuff like that. We'll look at headcount, like revenue to headcount, in different departments. Hey, is headcount getting too high in these specific departments? What is our overall W-2 costs or contractor costs? And we'll make adjustments based on that. The one, like the key metric that we always looked at though was that baseline of not going below 49% of our net income. And then we just measure percentages. So QuickBook has a feature, as you know, you can go into the P&L and hit like customize by revenue of income. I I love that they created that, because then I could actually go through every line item and see where I was spending the most amount of money based on percentages. And when I would see that go up and revenue align, then we could make decisions based upon that
My
percentage.
favorite report. Yep. Favorite report. That's great.
I think I just stumbled across it one day.
Wasn't even intentional.
It wasn't. I'm not a smart person. I just like dial down and start pushing buttons. I like to click
Yeah.
around and push buttons.
Well, it's getting curious, and I think
Yeah.
that's the point that I always want to drive home with our clients and listeners is that the numbers aren't telling you you passed or failed, right? Like the year one, your numbers weren't telling you that you failed. Like they were giving you clues as to what was working, what's not working, what you could do more of, what you should stop doing. And if we can embrace everything with curiosity that way, like I just stumbled upon it, right? Like if I could just embrace running my business with curiosity, God, what a
Mm-hmm.
different experience you'll have.
Totally. Yeah. And like I could never have done it like to where we are if I didn't wake up super early and go to the gym and get my mind right, and then come to the office with a sharp like brain focused, ready to dial in, and then block out my time so people can't take my time. So there's a lot of things that I've implemented over my entrepreneurship career that I just picked up on and learned and know what works and what doesn't work. And I still have a ton to learn. But yeah, knowing your numbers, extremely
Do you
important
time
and
block
being
your
ready.
time for reviewing your numbers?
100%. Yeah, I do. I get obsessed with stuff like that. We I time block everything actually. And if I find myself coming out of that time block by doing another activity that I already planned for, I have to hold myself accountable. It's that discipline thing, right? Going back to what you're supposed to be focused on. Because I weekly plan on Sunday nights and then I daily plan in the mornings. Um, yeah, it's quite complex.
Yeah. I find myself when I start, because I get curious too. So I'll start getting curious about something. And then I have to ask myself, are you the one that's supposed to be doing this?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That happens.
Pause. I don't think you're the one that's supposed to be here.
And then you email somebody, and you're like, "All right, hey, you go look at this, please,"
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
report back to me and tell me if it's something we should do or not do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wish I would have, or you think would be important to leave the listeners with?
Um, well, there's, let's get back into the conversation of money for a second. So you have your numbers, you're working a business, whether you work at a job or you're an entrepreneur or whatever it is, there's income coming in, right? And I think a lot of times we forget to understand where to deploy that income. And I think like on a personal level, you should also have a P&L and balance sheet at some level. And I think a lot of people, they don't really look at finance that way. And whether you're married or not married or going to get married, whatever it is, it's really important to understand how much cash is coming in and how much cash is going out. And, you know, for the listeners, like I see time and time again, well, they'll leverage credit card debt or whatever it is, and they think everything's okay, and they're just kicking the can down the road. And maybe they're making 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month, 30 grand a month. I know friends that make 500 grand a month, and they're still paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time understanding that because they're just not paying attention to what's going out the door. And I think like, if you guys get anything from this conversation, make sure to like live within your means and look at areas where you can always cut costs and obviously have fun, enjoy your life. But, if you can live, I mean, my percentage of income that I live on is changed as my income has gone up over the years. But I've always been a big believer of saving 50% of your income. And it's hard to do, especially with the inflationary times that we live in. But I've done it. I've done it for many years. And, mine has gone up. It exceeds that at this point. But what you can do with that capital is then you can invest it, right? And you can invest it into things as 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, the index funds, the stock market, cryptocurrency, if you want to, real estate. Um, so, and it's like, it's getting rich the boring way, but it's the
Yeah.
guaranteed way.
Yeah.
It's the guaranteed way of becoming financially free. And if you do that for 10 years, you know, and you put it in and you buy assets that produce income. So one of the things I really like to do, which makes it even another layer of complexity, is the cash that comes in from the day job. Um, there's a percentage that's pulled aside to go purchase assets that produce cash. And so I have two daughters, and what I always teach them and tell them is like, hey, your money makes babies, and you need to figure out how to have your money make babies. And
I was thinking give your money a job, but I
yeah,
like that one. I like that one.
yeah. I mean, George Washington should be your biggest worker all the time, and should work for you day and night, and make babies. So like, it's just a way for me to try to relate to them. They're young, but if there's ways that you can make money while you sleep, and you work until you die unless you figure out how to make money while you sleep. So
Yeah. I think I love the idea of giving your money a job, right? So
mhm.
in your business, as you're spending money, it helps you think about analyzing expenses. And if I'm spending without thought, I'm not giving my money a job. But if I'm
Right.
spending intentionally on strategies that are going to help me grow or hit my goals, then I've given those dollars a purpose. And I like the idea that as you're taking the owner's draws, as you're taking your payroll, because it's the biggest area of spending for our clients is just paying themselves, which is great, right? We want our clients to pay themselves. But what are we doing with those funds? Taking that next level of financial responsibility, because if we can continue to grow from there, gosh, like how powerful can we be as entrepreneurs?
And you have to sacrifice. Like delayed gratification has really worked for me. It's been hard. In my early days, I drove a fancy car and to probably impress people I didn't like. And as I got older and smarter, and studied more, I'm like, as I made more money, I drove older cars. Mm-hmm. There was a time I was driving like a 20-year-old car that was like, it was a piece of shit. And I could afford like really any car I wanted, but I chose to do that to, just to sacrifice and then leverage the dollar and let it compound. And it got to the point to where like, I don't know, I'd go drive it to the gym and, my wife wouldn't want to drive it with me, but my friends were like, "Hey dude, everything all right?" I'm like, "Everything's great." They're like, "Okay." Like, cause they would always like, I'm like, "Yeah." And the nicest thing is when I started having kids, they would freaking like get in it and like beat it up. I didn't care. So I wasn't like, "Hey, don't touch this, don't touch that." Like I didn't care. And, it's interesting.
That's funny.
It'll
be interesting for you to reflect on how those decisions unfold as they develop their money mindset. It's really interesting for me to watch my two kids. They're 4 years apart. And so I was at two very different life stages when they were young. So it's really interesting to see how they approach money. And I think part of it is who I was when they were growing up, but also, their own genuine personality. So you'll have to come back in 10 years and report on that.
For sure. Oh yeah. How old are your kids?
18 and 14.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you're in the thick of it. They're having to figure it out.
Oh, this is the worst age yet. So for anyone who has young kids, enjoy.
Oh man.
It only gets worse from there.
When I hit 18 and I went to college, I was like the first guy like, "Hey, get a free t-shirt, sign up for a credit card." I ruined my credit, like shattered it within like when I was like 18 and a half years old. So I went
my daughter's 18 and she's the one with a good money mindset so far. So we'll see where it goes. It's my son who's 14. I'm just like crossing my fingers. Everybody say a prayer.
It's crazy how they can be so different, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. It is. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Cameron. I really appreciate you sharing so openly and sharing your story. Money's not easy to talk about. And so I appreciate you sharing this. Where can the listeners, stay in touch with you, learn more about what you're doing?
Probably just go to my Instagram. Let's see, what is my handle? Because normally I tell people to go to my company, but let's see. What is my handle? It's just Cameron Hemphill. So, yep, my first and last name.
Okay. You
just go there. You can follow me, and then you can like hit my link tree and then see everything I'm doing. But my company's Growth 99. That's where we're focused. That's what we're trying to do. I have a podcast too. It's called Medical Millionaire, and super cool. So if you guys want to check that out, tune into that. There's a lot of cool guests on there.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link all that in the show notes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Danielle. Appreciate it.
I have a favor to ask. If you have gotten any value from this show and you want the show to continue to grow and keep providing you with strategies for financial growth and efficiency, simply leave us a rating and review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. Those reviews really go a long way in attracting more listeners, and honestly, they really make my day. So if you're feeling up to it, we'd love to see a rating and review from you. Either way, thanks so much for listening to the show.